can't go too long without reviewing a roguelike. A trend is appearing, I'm sure. And before I go on, please consider dropping a like and or subscribing. Thanks. Risk of Rain 2, the sequel to the top-notch 2013 2D side-scrolling roguelike in which I lost many hours, takes a formula into 3D, and I suppose it's reminiscent of games of old and natural progression to 3D. Where this is not always a good thing, Risk of Rain transitions remarkably well into these new dimensions. Finding yourself on a strange alien planet, it's time to get to business. Business being shooting and blowing up the local fauna. The main events here are twofold. You have an ever-increasing difficulty presented by an evil timer that starts off on easy but will eventually tick up to insane and way beyond. As time progresses, the difficulty rises and the game throws more and more enemies at you of increasing difficulty. This would not mean much alone, so it's a good job that throughout levels there are a myriad of randomly placed and permanent for that run power-ups, drones and usable items such as a throwable black hole. Most of these appear in lockers that have a price attached to open them. Getting cash is easy enough, just kill more of the locals. The goal of each level is simple, find the teleporter to the next, but when you activate it, it will spawn a huge boss and throw more enemies at you. You'll also need to stay in a certain radius during this phase for the portal to the next level to charge up. The conundrum of Risk of Rain 2 is what it was in the first game, of which 2 is very faithful. It's do I spend 5 minutes on this level and let the difficulty rise as I skip about finding ever more powerful weapons and items, the catch being that the difficulty never stops escalating between levels, only death and starting a new run will reset that. Conversely, if you don't get enough power-ups and activate the teleporter too soon, you're effectively gimping yourself and you'll either get trounced by the boss or you'll get a good kicking on the next level because you're just too weak. Not that you can't pull it back, so efficiency is key. The item variety is what makes the game so replayable, as is true with other games of this ilk, Binding of Isaac, Hades and so on. The joy of finding that killer combo of items is what keeps you coming back for more. One run might see you get multiple attack speed increase items and same items do stack, along with crit damage and damage over time items, turning you into a super effective killing machine, but you've got very little in the way of damage mitigation, so you need to be very careful. Where another may see you accumulate an army of drones, turrets and sticky bombs and missiles that you fire out of your back, or you might just look out and get a terrible hodgepodge of items and get stomped. But this again is the joy of these games, learning how to play and adapt to what the game gives you in any given run. If you got the same or similar every run, you'd soon get pretty bored. There are many items to unlock, and though you start with just one character, there are a lot more hidden away. Thankfully, not too hard to unlock most of them, and just play the game and you'll meet the requirements without even realising it a lot of the time. There are also artifacts that can be applied to a run, so for example, one of the more simple ones will make all enemies that spawn elites. But there are many more, and unlocking them needs a bit more work and thought. It's a nice addition and it can mix up runs nicely at your discretion. The game also offers 4-player co-op, so if you want things to get really hectic, you can hop online. The characters or classes feel smooth and fluid to play, just easy as it were, but the game itself is anything but. The control is solid and the additional unlockable characters all have their own strengths and weaknesses. I'm still a huge fan of the Commander though, but it's how they synergise with certain items and loadouts that also keeps things fresh. The game runs well and looks fantastic, very stylised, and even with a screen full of enemies bombarding you with all sorts of crazy effects and explosions kicking off. I don't think you can review this game without special mention to the soundtrack. It's just something to behold. The first game was no different, and the composer, Chris, whose surname I won't even try to pronounce, brings the game to new highs with his score. And it brings you as the player into the flow and entrances and energises you as you play. I strongly recommend you look him up and listen to the Risk of Rain tracks at the very least. If I was going to pick at it, I would say putting every character behind an unlock, bar the starting one of course, could be construed as a bit annoying, especially for the more casual player that may never get the joy of playing some of them, and they are truly fun to play. But they're also a goal, something to unlock and work towards, so I guess it's just a point of view, really. There are tens, if not hundreds of hours of gameplay here, and it's always nice to revisit the game, even for just one run. It's available now on pretty much every platform for around 20 note. For what you get, this is a great price. It's fun, fast, frantic, and just really exciting to play. You never know what you're gonna get on each run, and I'd certainly recommend it to anyone, as there's no barrier to entry. You're just top notch. Cheers.